If Maria supported the show, I'd be less sick of podcasts.
The blah blah.
Sending out good vibes.
The blah blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
The blah blah.
Good vibes. Good vibes.
108 breaths of deep gratitude and prayers for guidance and protection, and put on a didgeridoo and shamanic drumming track.
She handled it in a way that just kind of blew me away, but I didn't handle it so well. Internally, man, I was going through a tremendous amount of guilt and depression and things.
Okay, guys, welcome back to the Grimerica Show. We are going to be chatting with friend of the show, Brandon Powell, a little bit later. Of course, we met Brandon at our CAC event down in Colorado, Pagosa Springs, which we'll also be talking about a little bit later. Our next CAC event, of which Brandon will be at again, because Brandon's a fantastic guy, currently going down the Grimerica rabbit hole. I was talking to him just a couple days ago. He's plowing through the back catalog, and a couple of episodes are resonating with him. We're looking forward to seeing him again in April. Like I say, we'll talk about that a little bit later. Before we get into that, we got Graham Hoff Dunlop. How's it going, buddy?
Hey, it's good.
You're cold plunger, eh?
Well, I was a couple of years ago, but I haven't been doing it lately.
Have you done the Cairo thing yet?
Cryo. Cryo. So are you trying to trick me?
I'm a chiropractor.
I went to the cryo, yes, and there's one in Mission at Bronze Back
I asked about the
Tanning.
chiropractor.
Oh, bullshit. And it's really good. You jump in that tank for 3 minutes and you feel super refreshed and pumped.
It's in a tank?
Yeah, you stand in a tank. You stand up and then they close
In
the door.
water? Are you in water? Are you in a fluid? Are you in like a...
It's liquid, it's dry ice or hydrogen or whatever. Why am I blanking?
Are you
on
touching
what
it against
now?
your skin? Are you in a little suit or something?
No, you're naked in there. Well, just about naked.
Your testicles
I think
must
I'm
suck
naked.
right up.
Yeah, it's like, I was in the pool.
Man, that seems crazy to me. It must be cold.
Oh, yeah, it's
Too
pretty
cold.
Yeah, now you just breathe through it.
Think? Yeah. How long are you in for? 3 minutes?
Yeah, 3 minutes. Yeah, goes by pretty
How much does that
fast.
cost?
Too much.
Are you like freaking out?
They do IV. They do vitamin IVs there too. You know, I was talking to my
you just go pay some
prolotherapy
money and
guy,
they
my
just dump
natural-
some fucking
my-
shit into your veins?
Yeah, my naturopath prolotherapy guy. He'll do NAD plus. Actually, he will do that, and he does a Myers-Briggs cocktail. I think it's called.
Myers-Briggs, like the
I think.
personality
No.
type?
That's wrong. Myers something.
Okay. I was going to say these guys are cross-pollinating.
He'll do an ENFJ on you.
Interesting.
Right down the shirt.
I don't know. I'd be weirded out about going to strange places and getting
They're
this
not strange places. They're doctors and stuff. They're,
Okay.
they're qualified people. And,
Okay.
I mean, sure they have. It's not like you're going for $20 and you're getting an IV of some crazy substance. I mean, it's
You
like
take it-
$150.
You gotta so if it's as long as it costs enough, it's fine. I could go buy bags of saline over at Shoppers,
I
put some
haven't-
food color in
yeah,
there, and
that's
then I'll
true.
sell them out in the street.
I haven't done it yet, so
We could make.
I'd
a
like
real,
to though.
We can make a real profesh looking website.
What does that mean?
Superblood.com.
Superblood?
Yeah,
Yeah.
Graham blessed it. Just kidding. But that's what I'm saying. This is
But
like,
I should start the cold.
this is
plunge
what you
again.
could be up against when you go and let people transfuse things into you
Yeah.
with no regulation.
But I'm telling you,
Are
the
they
breathing
regulated?
is super relaxing.
The breathing, yeah, I liked the breathing. I just have trouble committing to things like that. I don't know what it is. I'm very disciplined in some regards, but
Yeah.
not in fucking breathing like a maniac.
Yeah, I get my nose is a bit stingy because it gets dry in there. Like this morning, I woke up bleeding nose this morning for some reason. And so then my throat, so then I have to do the mouth and nose inhale at the same time to try and,
Fully in,
Fully
Release.
in. Yeah. Chest, belly, chest, and head fully in.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Fantastic. I can't wait to do it
And then
again.
you know what I love about it? The breath hold is super relaxing. You can feel your whole body vibrating and the blood flowing. And then you exhale and inhale, and then I'm super blissed out and relaxed.
Blissed out.
And I don't remember feeling that before when I did it on my own until I started doing it under Brandon's tutelage.
Nice word. Yeah, like I say, I'm looking forward to doing it again. It'll be fantastic. More like
we should
like
actually
we're going to
do it
do the
before the
cold
show one
plunging
day.
there. What,
That would
breathe?
help. Yeah, it would totally help.
Wim Hof it before the show? Just lie on the floor out there?
No. I sit. I don't lying down. I don't like doing it lying down. I sit.
Why?
I don't know. It just doesn't flow the same. I need to. I don't know.
It should flow better lying down.
I know you'd think, but it doesn't.
Huh.
Because my whole body's making contact to something, whereas when I'm sitting, it's
You're all
just
jammed
with
up.
a straight spine.
The more you know.
But like I said,
I'm interested to try the cold stuff.
I've been trying
Okay.
though, right?
What?
Also putting my tongue up
Ugh.
to reach the pineal gland eventually.
Well, at least the old lady be happy with that skill.
Stretching out the tongue.
Are you doing it right now?
You should watch that video. It's fucking
I'm
crazy,
good.
dude. The secret teachings of Jesus,
So what
the hidden teachings of Jesus.
Are you serious?
Jesus was a yogi.
And he could lick his pineal gland?
Mm-hmm. But get the nectar from the pineal gland down under your tongue, out. There's like seven things, benefits to get your tongue up there, reaching the 10th gate.
So that's what they used to kill people for, cut them out and eat them.
The pineal?
Yeah.
Really?
I don't know. It's what I was talking about in Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas.
Really?
Yeah.
I
was
forgot all about that part.
It's like the super drug or whatever, you know?
But it's interesting.
Recall?
These guys can do that. So they put their tongue up their nasal to the 10th gate, and there's an electrical thing that happens. They connect their spinal cord to their brain. I'd like to know what Brandon thinks about this actually, and it does something about
You're gonna
closing
fucking
off
choke yourself, man. You better be careful.
I should show you the pictures of it.
Yeah.
And then
So you're
eventually
going
it
up-
gets up to the top.
Ah,
Like some people can
Dude.
feel it. Some people can't feel it, right? I
I'm
can feel
concerned.
my nasal pass right when I go,
so if you like jam it back there, you're gonna not be able to breathe.
no, you can breathe through your nose still. But it changes the way you breathe. It shuts off some electricity.
Maybe that'll make
somewhere.
you better at the didgeridoo.
Forget the didgeridoo. Never can do that.
But you can get the circular.
So, but
breathing.
imagine
Just
if
be
you can get your
careful.
tongue up
Keep a
that
pocket-
far
Keep a pocket knife on
and
you,
you
in
start.
case you have to give yourself a fucking
Oh my
tracheotomy.
God. And you know what it is? It's the Holy Grail. I want to ask Randall about this. The Holy Grail is the spot where the pineal gland sits in there, and that's where the nectar drips from.
But you're not supposed to touch it.
Then you touch it comes off onto your tongue.
But you're not supposed to touch the Holy Grail.
You don't have to. It just drips from the Holy Grail into your tongue.
What happens if you touch it?
And then you're transported to the other dimension.
If you touch it? Because you just choked yourself blocking off your throat with your tongue?
I'll show you after the pictures.
No,
and
I'm
stuff,
good, man.
It's pretty good.
No,
it's all laid
No,
out in
I'm
diagrams
good.
and pictures and
I'm
stuff.
good.
I'd like to know if any of the listeners have heard about this.
Are any of the listeners currently trying to stick their tongues up their throat into their nose?
Well, the throat would be down here. That's your nasal passage.
Nasal passage, yeah. You know, all the cocaine might be easier.
I know. I might have got rid of a whole bunch up there. That might be why I can feel it there. When it comes time for my tongue to go left or right, there's just
There's tons of room. Anywho, what else you got?
Oh man, I got a cool synchro. I got some quotes.
Ooh, let's do some synchronicity a
Oh
cappella.
no, let's do the quotes first.
I'm not ready for the quotes. All right, I get ready quicker than you can, so.
It's the profound quote of the week. Darren, can you guess it? It's the profound quote of the week.
Are you reading the troll room?
Guess the human who spoke
Actually,
it
Brandon.
or wrote it down.
Brandon, the our watcher,
Oh, okay. I thought you meant
says
Brandon.
if it's constantly dripping, where is it going?
It's not constant dripping.
Until the tongue gets there, it senses it.
Oh my God. It's the electrical impulse from the tongue that gets it going. It's your tongue. You can get it going.
Tongues
It's not
do get
just
things
dripping. Your
going.
pineal gland is not always dripping.
Good to know.
Unless you're dreaming. Maybe it does during the night.
If you do know where to get temporary tattoos made, let us know. We got a Grimerica skate. Actually, I'll wait till it gets here to give the shout out. Okay, let's hear the quote.
Oh, the quote, yeah.
Shouldn't it be the other book this time?
No, I got another one from this book
All
too, yeah. I thought I did. So this is again from the... Oh, this is a good one. I don't know if Brandon will like this or not. From the Octopus of Global Control. Tavistock is not a music festival. The Tavistock Institute of Human Relations was set up in London in 1921 to study the breaking point of humans. Kurt Lewin, a German psychologist, became the director of the Tavistock Institute in 1932. Ooh. About the same time, Nazi Germany was increasing its research into neuropsychology, parapsychology, and multi-generational occultism.
Multi-generational?
Yeah. Interestingly, a progressive exchange of scientific ideas was taking place between England and Germany, most notably in the field of eugenics. The movement devoted to improving the human species through the control of hereditary factors in mating.
Wonder.
That's from Thanks for the Memories by Bryce Taylor.
Are you going to go to the other book for the next quote?
Yep.
I find it's a little brighter.
Yeah, well, yeah, I mean, that is the Octopus of Global Control. So it gets a little dark.
Tends to get dark from some time. Octopus blocks out all the light.
Okay, let's see what this one's like here. Unless there's a giant conspiracy involving some 30 university departments all over the world and several hundred highly respected scientists in various fields, many of them originally hostile to the claims of psychical researchers, the only conclusion the unbiased observer can come to must be that there does exist a small number of people who obtain knowledge existing in other people's minds, or in the outer world, by means of yet an unknown science. Or unknown to science, I should say.
David Wilcox.
No. That was Professor H.J. Eisenach, chairman of the psychology department at the University of London from 1957. So this is why I love these quotes, because a lot of them are old, and it shows that some people have been, they've had their finger on the pulse of this shit a long time ago. Like, we think that, there's only the science, has been settled on extended consciousness over the last couple of years. This guy's going back to 57 saying there's tons of it.
Listen, Napoleon Hill told you the secrets of the universe in 1937, and I'm sure he copied them from somewhere.
And Florence Scovel Shinn.
That was 25.
Told you that in 1925 in her book, The Game of Life and How to Play It.
There you have it.
Before Napoleon. I wonder if Napoleon got his stuff from Florence.
I wonder if when did The Wealth of Nations come out, I wonder? Because
you want me to look it up?
No,
I can look
no,
it up quickly.
no, I'm testing the system.
I know.
You just can't resist, can you? Because I think that's I don't know exactly what. I mean, that might be more economics based.
That's what I think, yeah.
Might be more like actual business and economics, more like logistical stuff, more so than metaphysical. Anyway, you control reality, folks. Don't fuck it up. Get stuck in that rut.
The other thing I was thinking of in terms of, I was talking to my buddy Brady, who actually told me about this video about the pineal gland and Jesus and all that. And there's a way where I think there's some people.
March 1776.
Wow.
I forget what the question was.
Oh my God, that's 1776.
That's when the U.S. was formed.
Yeah, it came out right before that. That's weird. It's a good year. There's a way to breathe that expands your chakra system and gets that your chi from your base chakra to your third eye.
By licking your pineal gland.
No.
Are we back
People
to that?
combining the Wim Hof breathing with like your body's just it's got this like suction from the back and the bottom, and you can breathe like moving up and down, and it sucks your breath and your chi up from your base chakra.
Can you show me that
Your
again?
kundalini. No, I'm not. You can,
One more time?
no.
Now when I have the camera ready. So it's 1776. When was the USA formed?
Are you serious?
1776.
What's your point?
What are the chances the book comes out right before the same year that the wealthiest nation on earth is formed?
I know, that's what I mean. It's crazy, eh?
Yeah, it's wild. It's a synchro. What do you got?
I got an email.
I got nothing.
An email synchro. This is a good one. This is a synchro chain. It's a little long, but
Let's hear
this
it.
is interesting here.
Is this a raider?
Yeah, probably. It's been a while since I've read it, so. Okay, guys, I've been listening to your show on and off for years, but until a few days ago, really just focused on Crow 777, Higher Side Chats, and Freeman TV. Honestly, it was the intro.
Freeman TV. What?
Freeman TV, yeah.
You said it weird.
Freeman TV.
Okay.
Yeah, I know. Honestly, it was the intros that turned me off from you guys, but now I find great. You guys are hilarious and have a perfect chemistry that blends serious with lighthearted humor, belief and skepticism, and Darren just being a personality I can't help but hate to love. I plan on trying to help out financially because of the damn value for value guilt trip, but I did just buy me my very own Don't Shoot Bigfoot shirt, so I hope you guys get a respectable cut of that.
$3.
GuyAmerica.ca/swag. It's only a couple bucks we get, but it helps. Everything helps. And there's lots of good designs in there. But anyway, I've got a job that allows me to listen to podcasts nonstop and is in the middle of nowhere in central Oklahoma.
Submit art.
35
shirts.
30 miles south of OKC or so. So being able to download the podcast beforehand really helps out. But I've started, I remember this now. This is just a bit fucking creepy. What? Yeah, this is awesome. But I've started listening from the latest episode going backwards. Pissed I missed CAC. Fucking love Utah. Magical place. Anyways, CAC was in Colorado, but it was close. We drove through Utah.
Yeah, it was close to Utah. The next CAC's in Utah.
Next CAC's in Utah.
Synchronistically enough.
Magical. And we're going to do a magic
Contact
CAC.
at thecabin.com.
We're going to do a magic CAC.
Don't start talking about the next CACs till this CAC's 75%.
Okay. So he says, but he skipped ahead to Seth Breedlove.
Maybe we could remix the 50 Cent song. I got the magic CAC. You don't know your hip hop
No,
well
I don't
enough
know. I
to
don't
get
even
the
know what
reference.
song you're talking about.
This is like Monty Python to me.
Yeah. So we skipped to Seth Breedlove.
Typical white guy.
And that was I mean, not the listener.
Typical old white dude doesn't know his hip hop.
Yeah.
It's disgusting.
You forgot the privilege.
I don't see a lot of privilege.
Too short for that?
You're too short.
Seth Breedlove was the Small Town Monsters, right?
Yeah.
That was great. So he says, last night while I was on call and out till midnight working and listening to him talk about the Bigfoot encounters in the Colchina Mountains, which I've never been to despite living in Oklahoma, off and on for most of my 34 years. But for some reason this morning I decided not to finish the Breedlove episode and check to see what the latest Freeman episode was. And for some reason it was an old episode with Tracy Twyman talking about communicating with demons. But it was dated as a new show. Well, I listened to it anyways because I love Tracy and was very interested in magic, but suddenly for a reason I can't figure out, my phone started playing music on its own, and the first song was Falling Slowly, which creeped me out for some reason. Just seemed ominous. I figured I accidentally pocket played the shit, so I turned it off and went back to the podcast talking about demons. And the next thing I know, a creepy Kid Cudi song I've not heard starts playing called The Guide, off his album Passion Plane and Demon Slaying. So my creep factor went up big time. I know I didn't accidentally put the music on and the random selection of the song was too much, so I quit the iTunes app. Sometimes I have to do this with the iTunes. It fucking drives me nuts. I have to double click and then click the iTunes app off because it's playing the music instead.
I don't use iTunes.
Good for you. And he went back to listening to the podcast about demons, and almost immediately the song Red Rum by Project Pat started playing, which sent me over the edge.
Hey, you know if you say bit shoot in an episode, you don't get recommended?
Yep.
Oops.
I know that.
Sorry, Brandon. Now this episode's not going to get recommended.
We probably don't get recommended anyways.
Probably
We're
not.
probably on the master not recommendation list.
That's all right. We're heading over to, what's that thing called? I forget.
Do you want me to go look it up?
Not right now.
I can find it pretty quick.
Okay, let's check it.
Let's see if I can find it pretty quick. It's in my notes from our upcoming episode with Rizwan Verk, who started his own. He's actually part of the original founding of Discord.
That's right.
And Discord's going to be able to take cryptocurrency soon.
That's right.
Hopefully not Libra from Facebook.
No Libra.
But he's also got it's like a YouTube sort of thing for the paranormal. And I'm looking for the name of it, and it's called Bitmovio. So bitmov-io.
That's right.
Yeah.
And we're going to be on there soon.
Yeah.
He's invited us over. I don't think he needed to invite us. We probably could have just signed up. But
Oh, probably. But
anyway, we're heading over. It's nice that the owner invited us over. Feels like we're special. So we're going to run with the special feeling, the fuzzy feeling, and go try it out here then over the next few weeks. It'll just be another place we try streaming to. And you know what else makes us feel warm and fuzzy? When you head over to grimerica.ca/support and you sign up for a monthly.
I'm not finished the email yet. You're doing the whole. You're getting into the support spiel.
The segue king. I can't just leave a good segue hanging there.
Okay, keep
all right.
going.
No. Finish your thing.
I just felt like you kind of forgot where we were at there.
It's the short-term memory thing.
It's okay. The automatic, that's good. At least your automatic go-to thing is the support spiel. I appreciate that.
Someone's got to make.
Yeah, I know. So he said that started playing, which sent him over the edge. Look into the conspiracy about Memphis rap sigils, demonic shit. So I said, fuck this, and decided to go back to your show with Seth on my work phone and threw my personal phone on the dashboard. And I pick up at the point of him talking about the Bray Beast and occult practices in the area and decided, yeah, Graham might think this is synchronic. And then the story about the lady driving with her daughter in an area she wasn't supposed to be driving and suddenly felt like she needed to turn around and saw the UFO above her. And I was like, holy shit, that happened to me and my wife looking for the Roswell crash site back when we lived in New Mexico and decided on a whim to go out there. But we couldn't find shit and just kept driving down the darkest road ever. Eventually up a mountain until we both felt like we needed to get the fuck out there, and we started down and heading back the way we came. Noticed we were being followed by a cloud that was blacker than black until we reached a point where it stopped on a dime and we continued. I had many sightings in New Mexico, by the way, most of them being the same matte silver yet reflective sphere that would be at various altitudes that I would just randomly have the urge to look up, and there it would be. Oh, and back on the synchros. One of you guys asked Seth about Cain being the first Bigfoot. The Tracy Twyman shit was all about her talking to Cain in hell. And when I thought I should write this, I looked at my clock and it was 7:49 a.m. 7 plus 4 equals 11 and 9 plus 9/11. Very conspicuous. LOL. Either way, love you guys now. Can't wait for the next CAC. I propose an Oklahoma location because there are some Sasquatchy ass locations that could be sick. And a question for you guys that requires your adult brain. What do you think of Crow's 777 lunar wave footage? Belief is the enemy of knowing. Much love opens hearts and minds. Ryan Tosado.
First of all, I'd like to apologize to David Weiss for my behavior on the Flat Earth episode.
Wow.
Second of all,
What's that?
I'm
going
not
on?
sold. What's that?
What's going on with the apology?
I don't know if I formally apologized yet.
Why are you doing that now?
I don't know.
Just because you wanted to own your part of it?
That's right.
That's pretty good.
Well, I admitted that he triggered me multiple times.
Yeah.
So now it's over.
Yeah. And now you're like,
He can't come back on the show, but I apologize. I don't know if he'll catch wind or not. I'm sure there's enough flatties out there that I'm sure he'll catch wind.
all right.
So what else was I talking about? You've sidetracked me.
About Crow's 777
Oh,
stuff?
yeah. Remember we did the show? We had the
I know.
We had the
I
debate
explained
and
all
all
that, but apparently it's still going on from all over the place. So, and what I like about Crow's work is the HD UFOs that he talked about, the matte silver UFO balls flying around in the chemtrails and the clouds. That was pretty good footage.
I don't know if Crow listens to the show. And honestly, I'm not sold. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
I'm not sold.
Well, we did. I told him about how we had that guy on to debunk it.
We had him on to debunk it, and the Jetstream stuff. I mean, I don't know if that fits in every time, but it seems to. But it was more. That's not what turned me off of it. It was more other things that if someone wants to email me about, I could get more into. But I'm definitely not going to talk about it on the show.
Okay.
But it was other patterns that just made me think that maybe I threw the baby out with the bathwater.
Maybe, yeah, probably.
Yeah, happens from time to time.
Yeah.
That's hard.
Maybe you weren't using your adult brain.
That happens too, multiple times. I mean, I can think of at least a dozen times over the course of the podcast that I was not using my adult brain. Most in the beginning when I was drinking on the show.
Oh my God, you were drinking.
I was drunk on your Grant Cameron episode.
Oh
for
my
sure.
God, yeah. I bet you interrupted.
That's why there was
a lot.
so much cussing.
Did you interrupt a lot? That's not why there's cussing. You cuss at work big time. The other day you said fucking in three times in the same sentence. And I was going to be like, oh, this is just, he's never going to get over this if he's doing this at work all day long.
I don't know what to say. I thought I was getting better. I've been told I'm getting better.
On the show you are, yeah. It just worries me when I hear it in other parts of your life.
I just need... I'm pretty good at not swearing in front of the kids for the most part, but it still happens.
Just pretend your kids are listening to the show.
It probably will be one day.
Yeah.
We'll go through the back
one day
catalog.
soon, yeah.
It's hard to stop swearing, man.
I know.
Especially when we're working construction.
We're going on another show in 5 minutes, and you got to know you can't swear. So
I worked the first half of my career in the gold mine, and then I went construction.
Yeah.
I was doing.
I know it's tough.
And I was an alcoholic a lot of the time. A lot of swearing in the party scene.
I know. You're doing good though. Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Where were we? Support the show. GrandAmerica.ca/support. We really need it. Honestly.
Because it keeps the lights on.
Because we're, we go to business. We'd be out of business without
pays
support.
the rent. It literally pays the rent.
Literally pays the rent. And we're literally at the point where I'm watching to make sure we're going to have enough money at the end of the month to pay the rent. That's the real thing.
The rent's only $500 too. So
that's
not
right.
A lot of rent.
Yeah. GrandAmerica.ca/support. Like I said, we don't have a lot of supporters. People think maybe there's 1,000 supporters. There's not. There's less than 500. And it's time to step that up a little bit. We're trying to move this thing in a positive direction, and we need your help to do it. GrandAmerica.ca/support. We've been throwing some more value at you. I think there was 10 shows in June and a bunch of shows in July. Holy shit, Grand America coming out of your ears. All that value. Throw some value back. GrandAmerica.ca/support. Then Powell, more value. Black Budget Show. The value just don't stop. Join the chats too. That's valuable too. It's free. You can do that for free. GrandAmerica.ca/chats. Bunch of cool cats in there. Head over there. Ryan from Kansas will get you sorted out. Anything else? We should probably wrap this up.
Just send your stories and your emails and your feedback to
Graham's out of spam.
Graham at GrandAmerica.com.
Oh, CAC.
And CAC, we talked about it a little bit, but there's CAC coming up in April 2019.
We're doing contact at
2020.
the next
this
event.
Is CAC 2020.
Yeah, we're not going back in time. Head over to contact@thecavern.com, guys. You can over to GrandAmerica.ca. You'll see the CAC 2020 or CAC events, whatever it says. Anyway, there's a button there on the website, or head to contact@thecavern.com. That'll give you all the info on Brandon, here, our buddy Brandon Powell, who's doing the breath work. We're going to go down to Duck Creek, Utah. Got a couple places rented there that share a backyard, big house, a couple big houses. We're going to have some camping. We're going to do some presentations. We're going to have some bands. We're going to head out to Bryce Canyon one night, check out the stars with Dave Matheson. We're going to head out to Zion Canyon another night. Check out the stars with Dave Matheson. So we're talking about two of the top star viewing places on the planet with one of the top star mythology people, astrotheologists on the planet. Dave's going to blow your mind and tell you how they stole our history from us and snuck it all. They've been fucking us over for years. And then by day, we're going to go full Wim Hof method.
Yeah, we're going to jump in some cold water with Brandon.
Yeah. At the first one, we did just breathing. Now this time, we're going to step it up. We're going to get some pools, a whack of ice, fill them up, and we're going to do a full training session, just like you would do if you were taking a course.
Right on. That'll be fun.
It'll be a blast.
And then, of course, we'll see you 5 a little bit. We'll see some UFOs, I'm sure.
Yeah. Of course, we'll also get you there and back from Vegas if you need it, and we're going to give you all your meals while you're there, and you just show up. You show up, we'll do the rest. Contact at thecavern.com. Just so you know, as of today, there is 1 campsite left and 1 private room left.
What?
Other than that, it's pretty wide open, but the campsites and the private rooms went quick.
Oh, I see. There's other stuff besides the private room. Oh, okay. Yeah.
So there's still lots of other accommodations left.
Yeah.
But the camping option and the private room option will probably be down in a couple weeks. So if you want a private room, go now. If you want a camp spot, go now, because I would say by this time next week, there'll be none of those left. The magic from last time is carrying on to this time. So head over there, contact at thecavern.com, gramerica.ca/support, sign people up for the newsletter, gramerica.ca/news, spam Graham, do all the shit in the show notes, review the show, share the show. Most of all, you got to enjoy the chat with friend of the show, Brandon Powell.
All right, we've got Brandon Powell with us. Fortunately, we met Brandon when we were in Colorado for 10 days, and we did some breathing with him. He's a professional Brazilian jiu-jitsu and self-defense and functional fitness coach, and he owns and operates a dojo in Charlotte, North Carolina. And he became certified in the Wim Hof breathing method with the first group of U.S. instructors learning directly from Wim. And I think he's teach the teacher kind of guy, too. We were just talking about some of that stuff. Welcome to Gramerica, Brandon.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, man, it was great. I was thinking about it today that I'm glad we waited to have you on after we met you and had a chance to breathe with you for, like a week straight, because it sort of brings more life to the whole experience. And I mean, I've done the method a little bit on my own in the past, like the past few years. I've been playing around with a little bit, but there's nothing like doing it with you on the drums and leading the way. So really, it was really great to meet you there.
Well, I appreciate that, man. I think it's one of those things where you need the direct experience to get a sense of it all, because it's pretty crazy to think like after you know what its effects are, the potentials of just doing heavy breathing, right?
Yeah.
So, when we do the breathing in the particular way that we do it with the Wim Hof method, it is something, again, that you just have to feel. And Wim always says feeling is knowing. And, so getting that direct link to it gives you this, understanding that there's something there to it,
Yeah.
Especially just, and you can get it immediately, right? First session, So
well, I've been
it's pretty
doing
cool.
it. I've been doing it ever since the trip as well at home. Not every day, but I've done it quite a few times, and I love the relaxing. Like it feels really relaxing to me once I'm like when I'm in the breath hold at the end, and then afterwards I'm just so relaxed. I really feel it in the body. Like it's almost like a bliss in a way.
Yeah, I think it's because of, we're tapping into specific aspects of the brain that control our pain relief and our, like you said, our bliss, our states of awe. We are essentially connecting into, endogenous opioids, endogenous cannabinoids. And this gives a very long lasting feel of a natural high. The sense, well, we always joke get high on your own supply. And because, or everybody's holding, you know what I mean? Because we're tapping into this, it's like a chemistry that's bringing all kinds of things into it. I think you could, for a better term, maybe even call it like an endowaska, where we're tapping into, potentially even DMT, because we know that DMT is primarily produced in the lungs.
Oh.
And so, within our own system. So endogenously, again, it's produced in the lungs, potentially in some other areas as well.
Yeah.
Everybody would like to link it to the pineal gland and so forth. So that, but it is for sure, I believe, present within, brief glimpses of the breath hold. You can really get a sense of the DMT, So
it wasn't just me, and so that's what's really happening.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Absolutely. I mean, I think, it's part of what allows us to enter into highly stressful situations with a calm, relaxed perspective. So whether you're entering the cold, for instance, obviously one of the things that drew me to the Wim Hof method was Wim Hof. And so when I saw him and all of these sort of, intense situations, setting world records, doing various things, I didn't fully grasp it as much until I actually met him and could watch him transition through various environments without much change at all in his demeanor, if any change at all. Right. In other words, he could be inside playing his guitar, singing, and then he could be out in freezing cold water, and he was exactly the same. He didn't ever even seem like he went through any kind of transition.
Wow, yeah.
If that meant, so I realized that this was the intent and the will, and truthfully, man, I think it's that and love. It's these things all coming together inside him that propel him to be able to enter into these particular mental states that allow him, to suppress the stress in whatever given situation it is, running in the hottest desert, climbing the coldest mountain with very little clothes on, this type.
Yeah. I mean, we'll talk about the process a little bit as well, and we'll talk a little bit about the scientific benefits of it, and maybe later on a little bit about the shamanism that we talked about earlier.
But I did want to end.
I was thinking, can we do it live on the show? As long as no, we can talk a little bit about the. I mean, it was really special the way you led the thing with the drumming and the. I want to get a better audio tape of that just to follow on my own, so I'm not just doing it by myself in my home. But I want to talk a little bit more about how you got interested. Like you obviously, like you said, you found out about Wim and you met him, and that kind of, you didn't enter into this, planning on being a trainer and a teacher of this, but that's inevitably where it led. Do you want to talk a little bit more about that process, or?
Absolutely, man. With well, the reason specifically that I got into the Wim Hof method was because I was at a sort of a place in my life where I felt like I needed something like that. It was weird. It's kind of weird. It wasn't like I was necessarily looking for it, but when I saw, well, first I heard like whispers of Wim Hof through various channels, different people talking about him. And I heard him mentioned as like, if you really want to understand breath work, and maybe cold training, which I didn't have any idea really what that was at the time. They were saying, check out this Wim Hof guy. And right about that time, the Vice documentary had come out. And so I checked him out and I jumped into an online course that he was offering. And all of this was done because I was just going through like kind of like a major crisis in my life, man, where I felt very out of control. I was essentially, I had just started a business. I own and operate a jiu-jitsu academy, and fitness academy and martial arts and so forth. We have all kinds of stuff that we're doing in there, but I just started that business. And right at the same time, my wife got pregnant with our first child, and all of that was all great, beautiful. And we had a few dogs, and we had a situation where one of the dogs that we were raising started to display some really bad tendencies, and he was a very powerful dog, an American bulldog. These are the type of dogs that I kept, and the situation occurred where he attacked my wife. And this happened at a time where, like I said, we had all this going on, and he bit her in the leg, and it set off a whole. It really altered the way that we were living our lives at that point in time, because she could no longer walk for about a month. She was having to have her leg heal up, and it was a traumatic situation. Luckily, my wife is tough as they come, and she handled it in a way that, just kind of blew me away. But I didn't handle it so well. Internally, man, I was going through a tremendous amount of guilt and depression and things where I felt like I had, it's a deeper story with these dogs. These dogs were huge parts of my life. They were like my children before my children. And I've done all kinds of stuff with my dogs and raising my dogs, everything from, essentially just all different types of training with the animals. So I was very close with them, and we thought that we had really good animals. And so this was like out of the blue.
Yeah, it must have felt like a betrayal,
It was, man. And then everybody looks back at me like it's kind of like my fault, which I was feeling.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So at least, even though people, assured me they didn't feel that way, it wasn't going away, man. And it was like this, I just think that I was locked into a fight or flight response system where I just always felt on edge, and I couldn't get out of that situation, and I was feeling burned out, and there was these things happening where I just couldn't, essentially I was suffering from PTSD because, when this whole thing happened, I initially thought that the dog had grabbed my child, and I was in one area of the house and I was running to the other area trying to get there. And in my mind, the whole time, I thought he had my child. So when I got there and saw that it was my wife, there was no comfort in that. But essentially, at least I knew she could handle herself a lot better. And so there was just this whole melee. And essentially, I went through this process, man, where I was having a very hard time coming out of that. And so the Wim Hof method kind of comes along in this way. And I didn't expect it really to I wasn't expecting the impact of it so much so. But I swear, man, it was the cold water. The first time that I ever got in the cold, it really, it immediately, I mean, I had practiced the breath work a good bit for maybe a few days prior to actually my first real cold experience. But once I really got into the cold, I felt the reset of my nervous system. I actually experienced a powerful reset where I went from this sort of, this really intense, what we call sympathetic response, the sympathetic nervous system. You have two parts of your nervous system, the sympathetic and parasympathetic, right? And the idea is that the sympathetic is your fight and flight, and the parasympathetic is like your rest and digest, or some people call it the feed and breed, and what that more or less means is that, in these particular states, this is where we perform the best at these certain tasks, right? So for me, it was that I had been in the sympathetic state for a long time. I get into the cold, and after I found adaption, which just came from me essentially doing exactly what Wim said on the video. I hadn't even met Wim at this point. It was just controlling my breath. And I've been in a lot of stressful situations throughout my life, whether we're talking about fighting or various predicaments that I put myself in. I felt a lot of stress before, so I knew, where I was in that moment, and I was able to just calm myself down. And when I did, I entered into that state, and the rest is really history. At that point, it was like, this is the medicine. And I knew that we could take control of our, for lack of a better word, maybe. And I don't claim this as for everyone, but at least for me, I knew at that point I could take control of my depression. I could take control of my anxiety, and I could essentially center myself, because I feel that the depression is linked to the past and the anxiety is linked to the future. And I wasn't in either one. I was just right in the center, in the moment, with the cold, breathing and feeling myself directly connected to that experience. And my body was actually just going, fuck yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you're in a good place. And so I just started going back over and over and over again. I converted a deep chest freezer into a homemade ice bath. And I just kept going back to the cold and back to the cold and meditating in it. And the cold only allows you so much time. So, for me, it's all about like trying to cultivate that experience so I can last longer, meditate longer in that space, and then try to carry that consciously with me throughout the day. So that's how I've utilized it, why I came to it.
How come you only get so much time?
Well, because
it warms up, or you just get too cold?
Well, you can only
it'll kill your ass if you try to stay in there too long.
Unless you're Wim Hof.
Yeah, but even Wim will tell you, man. There's a what Wim did that's so fascinating was that he didn't just submerge himself in the cold. He did it and maintained his core body temperature. So for almost 2 hours, not quite, but the Guinness book is right around there. He essentially did, the ice bath, and they tracked his temperature, and he never lost his core body temperature the whole time.
Wow.
So, that's what really gets fascinating. And this gets into, in my opinion, the deeper aspects of knowing yourself and knowing a potential that most people wouldn't even consider, and that we have lost along the way, abilities that are our birthright.
like evolutionary
It
abilities.
reminds me of the monks in the mountains, like the tales of the monks melting, melting the ice around them, or controlling their body temperature.
They're trying
or
hard,
levitating stones or whatever.
Even they're trying hard, though. You know what I mean? Like, I wonder if it was like somehow, like, how hard do you think like a chameleon has to try to change colors? Or I'm trying to think of another example,
how
but
hard
like,
is it for how hard is it for an electric eel to utilize its electricity?
Yeah.
And
it doesn't have to do a bunch of breathing and stuff, right? It's just like, so it's like there was a time in evolution when it got cold and we just naturally like turned up, and when it got hot, we turned down. It was just like an innate thing when we had less distractions. Is that like, or something we've evolved past? Our brain is just past that, so we need to do that to tap back into it.
Well, this opens up a whole lot of questions. Is it that our current culture desires and craves comfort, and that seeking out the material, essentially draws us away from these type of practices, if you will, because I ultimately think that's what it is. I do believe that there are things that are right on the surface that show us, like breathing, for instance. Breathing allows us the ability. It's an autonomic process. We're going to breathe without thinking about it, but consciously we can control it. There's other things like that, like on a primal level, if you think about like something like sex, this is something that is a process that's offered to us. It's not guaranteed by any stretch, but it's a process that's offered. And then its potentials, right? Like, are we just mating? We're just breeding, or are we turning it into a fine art? So I think that there are processes within us that are directly applied to our connection with nature. And so when we get pulled away from the natural world, we have less need to do those things. We seek comfort. When it gets cold, we look for the warmth. When it's warm, we look for the cold. We're always trying to find this perfect balance of temperature to be in, so that we don't think about the environment so much, so we're not really paying attention to it. And I think that is something that has made us weaker. Potentially, we
don't have those challenges to keep us in the moment anymore. We're just
we're fully domesticated. There's really no way around it. If you compare us to where we were at 10,000 years ago, or even like 7,000 years ago, or before that, who knows? But at least for most of our evolutionary history, I would argue that we were almost like more of a feral man. Kind of like. It was you were in a group of probably a couple of hundred if you're lucky, and you were grinding it out most of the time. And I think that I think if you took like the average guy from like 8,000 years ago or from like 10,000 years ago and just threw him in the octagon, he would just fuck people up.
Well,
but I don't know.
There could be some truth.
Well, he probably wasn't depressed. He probably wasn't depressed because he's looking for the warmth when it's cold, and he's looking for the cold when it's warm, and he's not worried about materialistic things.
I spend a lot of time working with fighters. At one point, it was much more my job. I was actually primary fight trainer, and so I have worked. I've also accomplished and earned a second degree black belt in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I have almost 20 years experience in Jiu-Jitsu, and I've done other arts as well. So I've always been around this kind of idea that if you want to get good at something, you're going to have to eat some shit along the way. You know, the old Chinese saying is you eat bitter to taste the fruit, you know, and I really feel that what you see with some people is almost to the opposite extreme. Like, you know, without the visceral experience, that they feel like they're not living. And, you know, I've seen martial arts do some really good things for some people who really needed it. And, you know, a way to channel a destructive energy or just an energy that didn't have any direction, which I think can be destructive, you know. And so it's sort of like, I do think that there is a group of us, or there is parts of us, you know, all of us, even the toughest guys, that are still searching for some comfort, right? Still want a piece of the good life. And then you have the people, I mean, especially in prize fighting, where, I mean, that's ultimately the goal, right? I'm willing to take the beaten body in order to have something, you know, and I feel like that's still mass confusion. I think that when I kind of experienced this when I was younger a lot more, because I used to spend a lot of time in the woods. As a youngster, I spent a lot of time hunting. I grew up hunting, and it was a time that was like really not about the hunt, but very much about like all of the stuff that went into the hunt, and ultimately just being there, present. And the idea of like just connecting in to an experience where if you're not on your toes, you miss everything. It really, again, it kind of centers you and makes you realize that we are not always meant to be in a sort of a prefrontal cortex thinking what, where, when, why, how, but much more a sensory type of thing where you're listening, you're looking, you're feeling changes in the wind. You know, are you downwind, for instance? Are you, you know, and having to make adjustments in the moment to keep yourself relevant to the hunt. And, you know, these experiences have really shown me that, you know, if you were like this daily, there would really be very little time to consider, you know, I just think it alters your perspective, and it makes it so you're not considering needing more, feeling a void. You know what I mean? Like it gives you a real purpose. And I think the tribal existence, which is why I'm fascinated with antiquity, and the utilization of the old ways in a way to propel us into a future, is that I believe that people had much more of a purpose.
Yep.
And I think that experience of being in small groups where we really, where each person was valued and necessary, was something that we are also separated from now.
Yep.
You know?
Yep. I think that's why the hero's journey resonates with everybody so much, because if you're, you know, Frodo and the world's on your shoulders, everything matters, you know, you're completely in the present, and meaning is, you know, everything is meaning, massive meaning about everything. And you're not worried about all the little trivial things.
Well, it's also, I think there's a lot of like emotional output into those movies and stuff too. You know what I mean? People that aren't showing any emotion in their day-to-day life, but they can get really into a movie. Or, you know, I think the better analogy is the sports teams. The people that
Well, I'm thinking about the archetypal like hero's journey, not in the movies, but books. The story about
like the fairy tale, like the retelling.
Well, Campbell was brilliant, man. That in that he had the cross cultural references to really isolate the archetypes. You know, he obviously was a Jungian, and he really understood these principles, and then how to go back and look at all the mythology and link it all together and really strip it down to its rawest form, and show the common thread that ran through it all. And yeah, I mean, you're either the hero on your journey or somebody else is on your journey, and that's not any good.
Yeah.
You know, I personally believe that every single person is important. That's something that I believe. Now, I mean, you might only be important for a small amount of time, but I do believe that people are important, and that we shouldn't be treated in the periphery. I mean, you know, I tend to think more on a small scale and try to deal with just the people that I can impact and the local kind of movements. But it's awesome to be able to speak on a larger scale too, and think about the potentials that we have, you know, as being able to do things together. And I think it's like being an individual is important, but you can be too much of an individual.
Yeah.
So I think there's the need to balance that out and find the value of the
team
experience.
Yeah,
100%.
So I was thinking that last night. So Darren, when you were talking about the sports, did you mean like us playing on a team ourselves?
No, like people
like
that get completely divested in pro sport.
Because last night I was playing hockey and I had this thought. I was like, you know, there is a value. Even though I don't follow the pro sports thing anymore, there's a value to a team, like playing with a team and getting to know those guys and playing, you know, building your team, your teamwork, your strategy against that other team. Like I just had this real appreciation for that tribal or that team.
Yeah, absolutely.
Game,
for playing the sport.
And I felt like that would be good for people.
And I think that's what a lot of people are like projecting in a pro sport.
Yeah.
They'd be better off going and joining a team, and they would get more out of it than trying to invest it all in a third party. But I
think most people would agree that with like the team situation, the feeling of angels descending upon your team, you know what I mean, is the ability to link up and synchronize and play almost in this way that is, you know, it's beyond language. You know what I mean? Like, you just know they're going to be there. You've either drilled it enough to know, or there's this sort of improvisation that you know you can just do what you got to do. It's the flow state. Yeah. You know, which is directly connected to your breath and your intention, and your skill set essentially being able to just be pushed enough to really bring it out, to bring it through. And, you know, what I think that this connects into from an archetypical sense is the group mind experience that could occur, you know, and what I do believe, you know, the right group could experience it at any point in time now. At any point in time, it's always available to us, is the group-minded experience. You know, mostly facilitated by some type of, you know, experience, like, for instance, and I'll just, you know, use the breeding as a metaphor. It's the perfect one, because the breathing, you can really feel when everybody's linked up and breathing together, you know, and when everybody brings their intent to that space, you're creating this space together. It's all with the breath, and, you know, and it links people up into this, what I consider a group mind. I think, you know, under the, you know, under the influence of certain things like ayahuasca or other sacraments like the mushrooms or certain psychedelics, you can also really achieve these states that unify people in non-kin, right, non-blood, in this way that is so intimate that, can only be really, it's very hard to talk about, but I think it's something that can definitely be experienced, where all of the boundaries are dissolved and, we realize there's no separating the minds, that the mind becomes something much more non
Local.
say local, right? Yeah, I mean, I hate to frame it in this way, but this is what I believe.
Yeah.
And so, whether somebody disagrees with me or not, it's fine. It's really hard to argue consciousness, but I do believe that you can have that direct experience,
Yeah.
and I think it's repeatable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so in the, in the sports team is like kind of like a metaphor for that to me at this point, man, where we're trying to achieve those states. And honestly, I think it can be done in all kinds of different ways.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. So maybe we should talk a little bit about the breathing process itself, and then also relate that to the cold. And maybe
we didn't
also
do any cold.
Yeah, we didn't get to do any cold, but I mean, I've tried a little bit myself, but I do have some direct questions about how to handle the cold after doing that.
Sure. I mean, well, the breathing process is very simple, and it's online. Wim has a bunch of, for the Wim Hof process, let's say, it's very simple. It's out there. Of course, he has courses that go more into depth and really link things together. But the basic breathing process is breathing at a specific type of intensity. Okay. We say that it's best to optimally breathe, which is in through the nose, out through the mouth. But Wim also says breathe how you can so that we can get a good deep breath. For some people, breathing in through the nose is difficult. So you want to get a full breath in and a partial breath out. So there's some residual oxygen in the lungs. And the breath pace is, it needs to be intense enough to achieve the results, but it's something that we say shouldn't be forced. You have to play with the intensity a little bit, realize that your first experience with it won't be the same as your 100th experience with it, right? And the idea is 30 breaths at this rhythm and cadence up to a breath hold. The breath hold can be done in different ways, meaning either on the exhale or on the inhale for various results. When you do the breath hold, we're trying to hold the breath as long as we can. Again, you have to be careful. There's always caveat, meaning that there's potential for passing out in certain things. And so we always want to be careful. I mean, we didn't really see anybody passing out at our experience, right? But it's because we sit everybody down or lie everybody down. And that's how you should always practice the method, in that way. Seated or lying down. Don't do it in water. Don't do it on stairs. Don't do it driving your car, so forth. But we do it to the breath hold. And the idea is that we're looking for the gasp reflex. And that is the moment of magic. It's pushing the breath hold to the point to where you need to take a breath in. And this is important to do this in what we call a dry breath hold, meaning on the land, because you don't want to have that experience like down deep in the water where you absolutely have to take a breath in, right?
Right.
So we push it to the gasp reflex, and this is where the magic occurs. And when we take that breath in, okay, we hold the initial breath for a few seconds, like we say 15 seconds, and we call that the recovery breath. And that's one cycle. So 30 breaths, breath hold, recovery breath. And that's in essence the way that you do the Wim Hof breathing. Now, what I think makes like an experience doing it something with me or with another instructor is that we're helping you achieve the correct intensity. We're driving you towards really emphasizing the breath in the right way, making sure also that you're correct, that you're breathing properly. Because what we control in the breathing process is this exchange of pressure that's going on. Like there's this external pressure, like 15 pounds or so of pressure outside of our body. And so we take a breath in, right? We're controlling the muscles and we're exchanging the pressure from internal to external, right? So we take a breath in, allow the pressure exchange, and the same goes with the breath out. So each breath is this amazing connection to your environment and the fact that you have to have an environment, right? And so this is fascinating how it works. And, breathing to me is like, it's such a simple thing to train. It's almost too easy not to train it, but it's the lowest grabbing fruit on the physiological training totem pole. Like if you just want to sit there and concentrate on your breathing, pretty much anybody can do it. And it's something that's very impactful, like isolating the breathing system and just exercising it, can do everything from burn calories. I mean, most people don't know. When you're actually losing weight, you're breathing
comes
it
from
out.
your breath. Yeah. It's interesting.
And so,
like 88% of it or something. 88% of the weight you lost comes from breathing.
From the carbon.
Yeah.
So
Exactly.
there you go. You could Wim Hof some weight off, man.
Yeah.
There you go.
That's
a better idea than just thinking about losing weight.
You can do both. So, so is there an amount of rounds that you do, like that 30 breath round? We were doing, I think, we were probably doing 3 or 4 or 5 rounds at a time. If I'm doing it at my own at home, like then I do like 3 rounds. Is one round going to be beneficial as well? Or is there a minimum amount, like 2 or 3 rounds, or does, Well,
look, we have a 5-minute sort of pick me up kind of experience with the Wim Hof thing that I think really does have a great effect. Maybe not as good as doing the full, let's say, 30 minutes.
Yeah, 30
I would say
yeah.
really, we found that peak experience, especially within the studies, like if you look at the Wim Hof studies, that somewhere in between 20 and 30 minutes is really where we get that peak adrenaline experience that we're looking for ultimately being able to affect our inflammation. 25, 30 minutes is peak experience, but I have stretched it a lot longer than that, especially in relation to like feeling a sickness coming on and really utilizing the technique, because with all this practice, doing it, especially when I'm healthy and feel good, the time to use it is when you're feeling run down, in the sense that, maybe sickness is coming in.
Yeah.
We would say dial up the breathing at that point and dial down the cold a bit.
Yeah.
So, but the cold in conjunction with the breath offers this, it's sort of like putting an amplifier on the whole experience, because the cold burns fat. The cold is probably the single best way to produce endogenous cannabinoid in the system. So for just exposing yourself to the cold, ramps up, like I was saying, these pain relieving chemicals in the body, and so that in connection with the breath doing something that's very similar to that as well. So the breath also giving you these potentials. Ultimately with the cold, you have to have some control of the breathing. So what we're doing with the breathing is essentially by, what we call over breathing, or power breathing, maybe, we are lowering our CO2. And the CO2 controls the trigger or the breath response, the need to take a breath in, right? So we get CO2 build up in the blood, and then we have to breathe in to lower the CO2. So by breathing fast in the way that we do, focused on the inhale with a short exhale, we start to lower our CO2 way down into this deficit. And it essentially allows us, when we go into the breath hold, to create another deficit in O2. So our CO2 is way suppressed, and that allows us to hold our breath for an extended period of time because we've tricked our body into not thinking it needs to breathe.
Oh, okay.
And this allows the O2 to drop down into a deficit zone that can be tracked. I mean, if you had like an O2 monitor on, you would see that your O2 is way down into this place that you would never go into because you'd be unconscious. And so we're way down, just chilling in this super low O2, super low CO2, but then the CO2 starts to build back up. And it hits that triggered response. And at that point, you're in this O2 deprivation. You have to breathe in, because if you continue to really hold your breath there, you would just pass out, so that your body would reset and you would take a breath, which is, so think about like a swimmer who's swimming really hard, right? And they do like a kick flip on the wall, and they push off the wall, and they try to extend that underwater breath hold before they come back up into their stroke again, right? And in that space of basically hyperventilating when they're swimming to going into that kick off the wall, they black out sometimes. Wow. I mean, it happens infrequently. It's called shallow water blackout. It can occur in various ways, but that particular thing right there, that kick flip off the wall, has killed a number of swimmers over the years. So, the shallow water blackout is a real thing. And, we're very careful about that. Speaking about that with the Wim Hof method, you have to be really careful. The idea is when you get into cold water, we've practiced this, this unique breath method, which it's like an internal yoga system. It's stretching your body all over the place so that when it comes back to the center point, the homeostasis, you're more resilient. So when pathogen or something comes to the system, your body is more resilient and isn't impacted in the same way. It's really interesting how the breath can be so effective in, toning the way that your body reacts to like a pathogen.
Yeah.
And so the cold, essentially, when you get in the cold, it hits you with an automatic breathing response. People start, pulling air in and not breathing out, essentially. So it's kind of like what we're doing in simulation in our breath hold, except we're very controlled. This hyperventilation in the cold needs to be calmed. And so that's part of what I do in my workshops, right? Is I talk people off that ledge. They feel the shock of the cold, and we get them into a very calm state. And we try to do this quickly. And one of the best ways to do this, and it's really fascinating, is just reading each other's faces. And the face response is tremendous. And like, this is a whole nother thing. We get into like the polyvagal theory and how polyvagal works in relation to what we're doing, because we're essentially toning the vagus nerve through all of our processes. So this is a whole nother aspect of the conversation. But the idea with the cold is that you have this response, and we get calm, and by getting calm, this will allow us to begin our extended connection to the experience. So you get calm, and then the fun begins, essentially, because this is where we can really use the breath as a powerful tool to generate warmth. And so, I'll wrap it up by saying this. You made a connection to like Tibetan monks, right? And so there's a practice called Tumo, which some people have tried to connect the Wim Hof method to, which it's really not. The Tumo practice has particular meditations that we do not teach in the Wim Hof method. I actually think the Wim Hof method is sort of like a little more raw, and it's like we've taken the governor off, so you can get right to the core of the stuff like fast.
Yeah.
And what the Tumo practice, spelled with a G, Gatumo. This means inner fire, right? And we actually call the Wim Hof method the inner fire practice as well. It's interesting because the term tummy, I think, is related to the term Tumo, and the inner fire is. The primordial energy is known to be located in our center. So think of like
Dantian.
Yes, exactly. Very wise, Graham. That's exactly what I was going to say but you made the reference. So the Dantian point, right, is that center point, like a few inches below the navel and inward a few inches. And when you have a direct experience with that feeling, which is a powerful warmth, it's very hard to deny it, and it gives a real unique perspective on practices like qigong practices, yoga practices, these things that are about specifically cultivating that particular energy.
Yeah. Wow.
Did you notice any difference in your fighting ability or technique when you adopted the method?
Absolutely, man. I mean, specifically the breathing. The cold is just great in general for repairing the body, and for work, and not just the cold, but the heat as well. But the cold offers its unique power, and the heat offers its unique power. Both are great, and training in the extremes in either way will offer, like I was saying, like it's particular what they call heat shock proteins. And also, there's like a panacea between the two. Training the extremes will ultimately train the vascularity in a way that is unique to it, meaning that it trains the smooth muscle around the veins. So when you're getting better blood flow, you can imagine, like I just noticed in my fighting, like it's hard to totally put it into words, but I just felt that I wasn't getting tired. Like I just feel my energy level at my age and everything, I felt, 10 years younger, and I felt, this ability to really just be able to utilize my oxygen better, which is tremendous, And also I'll say this, in other functional things like running, it just made all of those things much easier. And then again, recovery work with the cold will give you, it's just so good for your bones, for your skin.
That anti-inflammatory.
Yeah. I mean, it removes inflammation. Right down to like removing chronic inflammation. But there are, and we're becoming smarter with it, there are really awesome protocols and ways to use it in relation to your training too.
Yeah.
So, like how I might give it to somebody who's not a hardcore athlete, like how we would train the ice versus somebody who is really trying to get something specific out of their body. The ice can work in different ways for different people.
Like you wouldn't want to use it after lifting weights, like after powerlifting and stuff, would you? It would be more for after cardio kind of thing, or?
Yeah, I mean, it just depends, man. Like if you're doing hypertrophy work, right, where you're trying to create muscle growth, the pro-inflammatory effects could be beneficial to the muscle growth and reparation. So it might be better to hold off on the ice just a little bit. It doesn't have to be for just a few hours to be safe. Might be the way to handle it. But if you're doing something like a conditioning style workout, where even lifting, getting in the ice, even as a part of the workout, is something that's really unique. And you don't always have to use the ice as something that is just like, let's say, trying to remove chronic inflammation. I might be getting ready to start a workout and want that adrenaline boost. So I'll get in the cold for just 2 or 3 minutes and just get myself nice and calm, and then get out and I feel like a Viking. I'm ready to attack whatever it is, you know what I mean? Like within my workout. So, there's different ways to utilize.
So is the breathing, do you do the breathing then before you do an ice bath? Like if we were on a workshop or whatever, and we were going to do ice baths together, would you do the breathing beforehand as well, and then continue breathing, in the ice, and then so I have that question, and then the other question is like,
do we do the ice baths together?
Not like at the same time, but we'd watch each other.
I'm out.
Come on. We'd and then when you're in the bath, like you mentioned, how when you jump in the ice and you're like you can't even catch that breath. So the trick is to breathe, to slow your breathing down, I guess,
Brandon
and
helps
breathe
you through that.
out all the way out. So I've always been saying on the show when I talk about, like, remember a couple of years ago when I was doing this, and
well, I think you're having like cold showers.
Yeah, and but
I can't even do that.
I'd always be breathing through it. So is part of the trick to continue breathing when you're in the cold, or to hold your breath again when you're in the cold?
Well, those are all really good questions. I mean, with so with my workshop, for instance, the way that I do it is I try to teach you components, individual components. And towards and this will come like with the breathing specifics. Like first we go through, we learn the physiology and anatomy that pertains to the method and the best way to get a good breath in, and how to utilize the diaphragm as a really powerful tool. And then we go into the breathing experience. I tend to take people to, depending on whether we're doing fundamentals or advanced work, I try to take people as far as I think they can go, and give them a deep experience, right? And once we come out of the breath work, we practice, or we have practiced some other tools that we can use to kind of do post-ice training. So the ice experience with a lot of people, especially in the fundamentals, this might be the very first time they've ever gotten in the ice. So it's very difficult for me to like do, real in-depth ice training, which I think for the most part really is just about exposing yourself to it and becoming more and more comfortable. You can apply specific techniques in the cold, but I think that these are things that you need to learn outside of the cold first. Okay, so in a workshop, you're going to get all these components. If you're lucky, you might be able to start to get a sense of what it's like to put things together. But then the work's either up to you or to continue your training with an instructor, right? And so what I'm doing is I'm giving everybody these various components. We go into the cold. I work with people to get them adapted in the cold. I would say out of I've worked with well over 1,000 people, putting them into ice baths and in this particular style, in this experience. And maybe I've had 1 or 2 people that either just didn't want to participate or, in the moment, or just couldn't handle it. So for the most part, I've seen every single person make it through the experience. And once we get everybody calm, we get out, then the meditation is really in play at that point, because you're presented now with the stress of being cold. So what do you do to get warm? And what we try to do is now apply some breathing principles and minimal movement, and much more of an internal focus. Okay. But we do some things that help to create and generate, or I should say, push the heat into particular zones of the body, so that, because your body is already creating the heat, and it's without, if you don't, it's going to happen regardless, but you're trying to minimize the effect of the core heat mixing with the cold blood from the extremities. So you have cold, all your heat rushes to your core when you get into the cold. And so now once you get out, if you just kind of just say, okay, I'm done, then you're going to have this mixing of cold and warm blood. And that's going to, that can create what we call the after drop experience, especially if the ice bath has been kind of extended. If you get past that 5-minute mark, working towards 10 minutes or so, you're definitely going to experience an after drop, which is basically going to be, you're going to start shivering. If you don't know, and shivering is just your body's way of trying to be, get warm. But the organs are now experiencing this cold blood coming in. So we do these particular exercises to try and keep the cold blood from mixing with the warm blood. And as you do this, especially over, a brief period of time, just working with the system, becoming familiar with the experience, you'll start to see how easy it is to suppress something like the shivers. Yeah. I would never say you're trying to force that in the beginning, because it's better to actually experience the shivers and feel what your body is trying to do. And then you start to kind of Harlem shake your way through the stuff and feel how you can move the warmth from the extremities from the core out towards the extremities. And you can feel things like your palms getting hot, or the core, the soles of your feet getting hot, your legs getting hot. And it's really fascinating, man. You'll experience thermogenesis by exposing yourself to cold in a way that you've never experienced that, with your body trying to get warm, or essentially it is getting warm. And so it's that post-ice training, especially initially, that really gives you the insights into what to do more when you get back into the cold. Because then you'll have a much better insight and perspective. And the breath holding, for instance, is a process in some ways to helping you extend your stay in the cold. But it's never something that I would tell somebody to force initially. Okay, this is something that you really need to work into, man, and have an understanding of. Yeah, it's like going too far too fast.
Because what I noticed is breathing through the shivers is fairly easy once you notice you're getting, you can't have that breath. If you force yourself to breathe through it's almost an insulation to the cold right there, and then the shivers will stop, and you can withstand it.
And what's really awesome about it, man, is it's subjective. Everybody is not the same. Some people are extremely resilient when it comes to the cold. They get right in and immediately they're just connected. It's like you barely have to say a word. They're smiling at you. And that initial, like, I can look at somebody's eyes and their face, and I can know where they're at in that experience completely. I mean, just completely. So as soon as I know you're there and you're good, I just let you do your thing, especially within a fundamental workshop, But there are some people who are looking at me like I have just thrown them off of a building. You know what I mean? And like they're hanging on by their fingertips, just trying to figure out if they're going to make it or not, Yeah. And, it does expose a lot of things to yourself. We have a lot of connection to the cold, like through emotions or through fear or whatnot. But when you move through that and your system resets, like I was talking about, you shift in that parasympathetic state, you're going to feel like $1,000,000. And food is going to taste better than it's ever tasted. And, to be honest, man, it's great for your hormones. It's great for things that, that give us a better visceral experience, like sex. It's great for men who have problems. It's great for, I mean, I'm not going to say it's going to fix everything, but it really, really ramps up the appetites for those things. And, and so I always just, I see a commercial or something for some kind of thing, and it's laughable to me, man, because we have the potentials to tap into aspects of ourselves, and heal ourselves in ways, and ultimately, for sure, I think we could do as much as stop our own heart if we really wanted to.
Yeah.
We've seen mad potential, right?
Yeah.
So I think, there are just so many ways to fix yourself with it, but I do think that just like anything else, man, there's a fine art to the practice. You need to take your time with it. You need to realize that it's a cultivation experience. I mean, Wim didn't get all this stuff overnight. I mean, to be honest, he started training with the Colt, I think, when he was about 17, and he didn't really start setting his world records until he was in his late 30s, early 40s.
Yeah.
So, it just goes to show. I mean, there's a time, and he was a very accomplished yogi long before that.
Yeah.
And mountain climber and mountaineer. So, I mean, there was just bringing in, and I really believe this, like life is integration, right? All of our experiences coming together. He had an amazing presence of mind to recognize just this ability to tap into his breath in these extremes. But that's there for us always, all the time. Like when you feel stress, it's really no bullshit to just take 10 deep breaths and see if you're still stressed out. You know what I mean? Like, it's just, we have the potentials to really alter our perspectives just through our own concentration, and some people don't want to hear that, but, and would rather take a pill. But I just think that there's some real value into refining these arts that I consider to be innately human.
Yeah. I wanted to ask you more about the 5-minute energizer. So is that when I was asking you about, the benefit of how many cycles? So is that 5-minute one, let's just say, a cycle of 30 and a good 2 or 3 minute breath hold. And that's like sort of a little pick me up, or?
Well, what we do is train what we call a hypertrophic, meaning oxygen deprivate, right?
Yeah.
Hypertrophic exercise along with the breath hold. So when you go into the breath hold, what we specifically teach is to do push-ups with it. Okay, so you do let's say a round of the breathing and a breath hold with that particular round, right? So just like maybe consider it like a warm-up round. Those still push the breath hold. Try to really extend the breath hold as long as you can. Take your recovery breath, hold that for a few seconds, let that go. Then go into a second round, okay? Usually a full round with the breath hold and everything is, it could be anywhere from just a little over a minute to a couple of minutes, depending on how long you really hold your breath. And so you come into that second round, you do your breathing, and when you go to your breath hold, try to hold your breath. Initially, it's really good just for safety purposes and everything, and to tap into that parasympathetic nervous system. Do it on the exhale, okay? But you can also do this on the inhale. The idea is that you take your final breath, and you do as many push-ups as you can while holding your breath. And this does a bunch of stuff to your physiology, but you tap into an energy source that and a utilization of energy, meaning the way that your body is processing ATP. You're going to do your push-ups, and you're going to feel like you could do more push-ups than you've ever felt like you could do. It's really fascinating. So, especially on a single breath.
Till you're black.
The rapid breathing up to, and Darren, you can do these off your knees. Okay.
Ha!
Or look, you can do squats, you can do other things, but it's better not to just jump up after the rapid breathing because you might pass out. So the push-ups are like, if you're laying down, you can just roll over and just crank out push-ups. This is kind of like swimming underwater, right? And so holding the breath and doing this really makes you seek out that gasp reflex. You could also just hold the plank if you needed to. But if you wanted to do it that way, like if you felt like you're dealing with shoulder injury or something, you could just hold that position. But it's the stress of the external exercise along with the breath hold that forces you into that need for that big breath in. So essentially you just do the push-ups till you can either do no more push-ups or you need to take a breath. And then you take that big breath in, hold the breath, and that wraps up the 5-minute workout.
Well, that's kind of like when you smash your thumb with a hammer. Maybe you could do that.
Yeah.
Get Maria to smash you in the shins with a broomstick.
Right. But you know what's really interesting, man, right? You smash your thumb with a hammer. You don't just go, you don't breathe out and go, it feels great. No, you go, and usually you curse because that's connected directly to our brain center of pain relief, right? The cursing is connected right to pain relief. So when you yell out some profanity, it's because your body literally feels pain relief doing that. And so, if you smash your hand, or let's say touch something hot, anything that causes you to recoil, the initial reaction is for your body to go into fight and flight. But if you can, relax your muscles, breathe out, it's that same, you're applying in the moment that cold training, right? I always say my test is traffic, man. I could smash my hand all day. You could punch me in the face, and it still doesn't bother me as bad as traffic. So usually I use traffic as a way to just practice my method.
Yeah, that's a good one. So I do want to talk a little bit before we run out of time because we want to get into some shamanism and stuff too. But the some of the science behind what Wim and you guys have done, showing the benefits of this. Like there was that, I remember one off the top of my head that I think it was a pathogen test where 12 people were studied, 12 people that were doing this breathing method were studied, and 12 people that weren't doing it. And so the ones, they were all injected with pathogens, I think. And the only ones that those pathogens took effect were the ones that weren't doing the breathing. Like all 12 that were doing the breathing resisted completely. So is there some of that and then other ones you want to talk about?
Yeah. Okay. So, I'll clean that up a little bit, but essentially if you ever want to know anything about the Wim Hof method, go to the WimHofMethod.com site and all of the science is there. So you can read everything, in a pretty organized fashion. What essentially created, what is known as the Wim Hof method, was exactly what you were just talking about. Initially it was him by himself, taking on what's known as an endotoxin, right?
Okay.
Which is like the shell of a bacteria. It's supposed to elicit a response in these particular studies that they were doing. They wanted to see how the endotoxin, and they'd studied a ton of people prior to Wim also taking on this particular, going through these tests. And what Wim was able to demonstrate was that, utilizing his technique, he could suppress the inflammatory bodies substantially in comparison to everyone else who had gone through this thing, and let's say there have been 1,000 people that had gone through it. Everybody had experienced these markered effects, like you're going to have fever and nausea and so forth, going through this, and then studying their blood, you could see these particular, the inflammatory bodies, protein cytokines, ramping up in the blood. And Wim was able to suppress that to a very noticeable perspective. Essentially, just get what the body needed instead of the overreaction of the body, which is what occurs in when we just allow our body to do its own thing. So the Wim Hof method, being that it sort of tones the reactionary aspects of the body, and by toning it, we get more of what we need and less of what we don't need. And so, what Wim did to make it actual science, to get it published, for it to become a method, was we had a control group versus a group that didn't have the that didn't utilize the method. So it was 12 people that Wim trained for their first time. These people were not experienced practitioners of the method. They were people that were newbies. They came in and they did 4 days of training with him and 4 days on their own. Then they came back to the laboratory and were able to display a very similar, thing that Wim was able to do. I mean, they basically showed the same. What they showed was that their adrenaline ramped up immediately when they had the injections of the endotoxin. So their adrenaline was way up, and that suppressed the inflammatory bodies. And essentially, cortisol levels and adrenaline came up, and the adrenaline levels of the other group, the untrained group, their adrenaline stayed down low initially. Eventually, it came up a little bit, and the cortisol levels came up, but our adrenaline levels and cortisol levels came up, spiked, and then went back down, and were basically at a normal space. And the inflammation was suppressed at that point. And whereas the control group, the adrenaline came up later on its own, right? Because we're essentially creating adrenaline in the system through our method. And so their adrenaline came up a little bit, but then they had extended cortisol within the system. So our cortisol and their cortisol both came up, but ours went right down. Theirs stayed up within the system, and they, of course, experienced the whole gambit of effects from the endotoxin. Huh. So that became published science at that point. It went into Nature magazine. It's been put into school textbooks in certain places. That we have the ability to influence our autonomic nervous system.
Wow.
Yep.
Obviously.
Yeah, there'll be a link to all that stuff in the show notes as well. There's a whole page on the scientific research, so that's great.
What are you guys after now?
Man.
Are you guys working on are you guys chasing down any new science right now?
Oh man, always, Wim's big thing is no speculation, right? So he's not going to put out there too much. I will say, and I was fortunate enough to get to be in this event with him, or take part in this event with him. He just received a large donation made by an organization that essentially is allowing us to go into a 2-year study in San Francisco on mental health, using specifically the Wim Hof method as the tool.
Wow.
To try and, so it was like $1.5 million, around about $1.5 million that was given to this study. And that's being, so that's going on right now.
Fantastic.
Is that like PTSD really cool, stuff, or?
PTSD is by far I would say one of the biggest sort of things that people remark about in relation to the Wim Hof method, as far as like when people say these are the results that they, got from the method. We hear so much about PTSD. I have been able to work with the Inner Fire team to teach the teachers for the last couple of years. So I was a part of the very first international instructors group that came about, and then the subsequent years, I've gone back to help teach the new instructors coming through, and we've had a few years of that going now. And every year, man, I meet some amazing people. All kinds of people that have become Wim Hof instructors. I mean, mind blowing, like who's come out to these events. And one thing that we see a lot of are guys who have experienced different types of trauma. A lot of times, you get these kind of, these alpha kind of people, just real gung-ho people who are really all in. But, last year, for instance, we had a couple of combat vets that had seen some real hardcore action. I've seen that in my workshops, just people who have come to attend more than I can remark on, man. Combat vets specifically. These are people who are willing to do the work, but have gone through some shit. And so I have dealt with that. But in this last group, we had 2 Navy SEALs and probably like 4 or 5 guys that were, combat Marines. And so it's interesting because we see that. And this last year was more so, it was 2 Navy SEALs that actually served together and came to the thing independently of each other, but were both went through their training together. It was really fascinating, man. 2 guys that showed up and were had been longtime friends in the SEALs, but did this independently of each other. Wim has also worked a good bit with like the Navy SEALs and other special operation units. People dealing with this high forms of stress, basically involuntary stress, where your body takes over and creates a particular breathing pattern that you're no longer in control of.
Yeah.
So, I might have lost track of where we were going with that, but I have seen, some really interesting people come through and in that way, the as we were talking about, the PTSD, has been something that people have, have spoken about quite a bit. And again, with me, I mean, that was something that I saw an immediate. When I went through it, I really became an ultimate believer.
Right.
And the thing is, just a little bit more my story. When I was young, I was 5. I was in the hospital room with my father when he went into a stroke and passed away. Oh. I've made my peace with things through life, but it was definitely something that set the pace for my young life. My mom had 2 boys to now raise on her own for a period of time. And it just was, it was a life change. And it was a complication with a surgery that caused a blood clot that went to his heart. Oh. And he lost, he basically went into a massive like cardiac attack and went into a stroke. And so, PTSD for sure is a real thing, man. And I've dealt with a lot of trauma through my life, and I know it's this real thing where we get like locked into these loops. And again, I think it's so connected with our nervous system that when we can break those loops and those cycles, we get this sort of perspective. Even if you get pulled back in, because that can for sure happen. You get this glimpse of, man, I don't have to be here. And if you just keep doing the work, it can really release it. And I think that's what a lot of these people who, like I said, are willing to do the work go through and find like, man, I can really affect my own depression, my own anxiety, and that is so connected to the PTSD.
Yeah, there's some other things like psilocybin and stuff we were talking about a little bit that are coming around
MDMA.
for that as well, for the PTSD. Like a lot of good.
When are you going to climb Everest in your shorts?
Man, I don't know if you've seen all these. The Everest thing has become like this mainstream attraction where people are dying waiting in line to summit. Seriously,
Really?
Yeah.
So yeah, man, you should check it out. And
They just
I
cleaned
have
up the mountain, and it was something like 20,000 fucking pounds of trash they collected and like 4 dead bodies.
No way.
Yeah,
Oh my God.
it's terrible, man. It's terrible. And I've definitely climbed some big hills. I've done a few with Wim. We have one coming up this year where we're going to be out in Washington State climbing a volcano again. And I've been up high. I've been up, over 14,000 feet. And, when you get into those spaces, you're pushed into a place where your breath is just like you're linked in, you and your breath, and it becomes so important. Like each step, each breath is just really concentrated on. And so, you can understand like, and Wim he's a beast on those hills, man. It's even as kids, they're just something about those Hoffs. They can climb a mountain, and they, but it's there's like a joy to it too, which is really fascinating. And this really gets into what I think is like the core, in principle, to the Wim Hof method or to shamanism, to just about anything. And I think Darren and I actually had a conversation about this when we were, I don't know if you remember, when we were up in Colorado. And I really think that the essence to it is love, and that's a tricky word to use because it's more about this open-heartedness and this feeling of connection through the heart to the things that you're doing. I do believe will and intention are extremely important. I'm not so much intent or will over love, but I think it's the linking of the two together that cause this ability to drive into these things with a fearlessness. And that is what I think drives somebody to summit an Everest or whatever. I mean, if it's just an athletic adventure, I think you're missing a huge part of it. I think the spiritual essence of it is so necessary. And so, yeah, I'm looking for my thing. I don't know that my thing is definitely is climbing the mountains to prove this method, but I do, and I am at work with certain things. One thing that I am fascinated with is the plant teachers and the ability to create a powerful space, utilizing those things, but integrating that with, the breath work,
And the
concentration,
cold and hot, maybe, or
I don't think those things are necessary in the moment. Maybe post experience, let's all jump in the hot tub.
Yeah,
but
yeah. Well, I was thinking more like a Nordic spa environment where there's the thermal cycles and you can go hot and cold on a little bit of psilocybin or something and really extend.
Well,
that.
Man, I think yes, that could be a great thing. I would never say no, but I would say that I believe that the plant teachers also allow us this ability to create a refined work, around. I don't think I think that the ceremony and ritual and these things that have been more or less I don't know if it evolved or uncovered. I don't know what the right way to frame it is, but these things that have definitely appeared cross culturally, having reverence for the medicines, treating them with respect, because I do think there are potentials for danger there too. I mean, I think in the current psychedelic world, we hear all of this, and because it's probably because there's been so much bad talk about it over the years, but all we hear is all the good things that it's going to do for people. But I do think there are real trappings and danger within this type of spiritual work. And so I think that without humility, without reverence, without some type of code, that I think that you can lose sight of what it is that you're actually trying to accomplish. And, I think there's a call to arms with these experiences that brings certain energies, right up to the surface. And, I've seen people go in various ways. And I think that comes down to not really developing the art of actually, of shamanism, and shamanism is a weird term too, because it's, it can mean a lot of things to different people. But really what I'm saying is that ultimately, being a person who works with these particular spaces, I do think that there is a way to create repeatable sort of delivered experience to either a group, of people, or to an individual through the right approaches. And it's far. I would never try to imply that I know the right ways to do this in for somebody else. But I will say that I do believe that each person can sort of come to these conclusions in a way that we would find are very unique and quintessential to them. In other words, we would find that we're doing the same shit if we were really focused on it, because I think there are only certain ways to get these experiences truly off the ground. One of the big things, and you guys experienced it a little bit with me there, is singing. I think singing is a great way to connect in, but I think on the level that I'm talking about of being in an experience where you're locked in, man, you're going from A to B and there's no stopping the train, I think it's sort of like the sailors who had to commit to the song as they're rowing across the ocean, because it really helps to get you there, tethers you to the experience, and at the right dose and the really bringing the experience through. The singing, I believe, is so crucial to guiding. And what I think you will find in those experiences is a synchronicity that only can be experienced. And so I think that this is like the essence and the core of shamanism. I think you can really achieve some stuff without plant medicines. Mm-hmm. I just think that the plant medicines facilitate an experience where you can at least, like the great bard Terence McKenna said, you can know you took some shit. If I woke up tripping, I would think there would be a big problem. Yeah. So it's way better to know that you're working with something. And in regard, just like food or anything else, there's something that you can gain from it. And I believe that these experiences, when treated properly, are the most transformative things that we as human beings can potentially go through,
I might add a bit of placebo too, right? Just knowing you took some shit.
I missed it.
Well, it could add a bit of placebo.
Well, but what is the placebo, man?
Yeah, exactly. Right? Well, just taking a bit of mushrooms, and then you're like, well, now you've opened up that some walls are going to come down. So
Yeah, and some people are not ready for that. But I will say, as far as the placebo is essentially mind manifesting. And it is, to me, the placebo is like really powerful, because if it works, it works, and that means our minds did it. And so I think that there are ways to, like, I'm a big believer that integration is extremely important. So if you get an insight from maybe some type of profound experience, I think it's really important to integrate it, because if you don't use it, then it doesn't mean anything. And I think that ultimate bliss is being able to do the things that we think and really do them, especially if it's in this positive way that's bringing you something, and I think that it's important in this regard to be kind of selfish and, in order to focus, on yourself. But I think that the integration is so important, man. Like, I think you have to learn from these things, and some people maybe have one experience and that's all they ever need in life, but for me, it's like I said, it's this fine art. It's like, I need it more than once. I need the thing that is a reminder, and that's where all art, what all art is to me. It's like, if I never thought I was going to get better at something, I don't know that I would commit myself to doing it. So, with jujitsu, I only ever saw that I was going to one day be a black belt. That was all I ever saw, and that's why I became that. And I think it's like this with any of these types of things. It's like you want to get better, at least I do. And I think that's what is leading me. It's what keeps me humble too. And realizing, like, I don't know much, but what I'm trying to know, I think, is a deeper aspect of myself in regards to all of this stuff,
Yeah. Yeah.
And there you have it.
Yeah.
Well
awesome.
said.
Yeah.
Well said. Well, the time flew by, of course, and an hour and a half later. Fantastic. Where can our listeners track you down, Brandon? Do you have a website? I know you're on Twitter, right?
Well, man, I'm barely on Twitter right now. To be honest, like, I'm having to embrace all of the social stuff. It's a little bit difficult for me because I just, how it is.
Take it slow.
Social media.
Take it slow.
Yeah. So right now, I do have my Instagram page, which anybody can get on, and we're always putting stuff out there. I'm on Facebook and so forth. Send me friend requests. It'd be great to meet everybody through those things. I have a website that's coming out. It will be done before the end of the summer. It's going to be inclusive of my music. It'll be inclusive of some various training regimens and protocols and different things. I do traveling seminars. And so if you follow me on Facebook, we're always putting out where we're going. We're going to be, right now, I live in the South. I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina, but we're going to be traveling around the South a little bit through the summer. I'm in Charleston in the next month or so, putting on a workshop down there. And then I'll be out west a bunch. So there's the workshops are always popping up. We have them just about, every month or so. There's another workshop popping up. So if you guys are interested in that, follow me on Facebook and you'll find everything there.
Awesome.
And
I'll put a link for your WimHofMethod.com, your instructors page as well in there.
Yeah, that's great.
And let us know when you're going to Washington, because that's not too far from us. So
awesome, guys. I look forward to it, man. It was great to meet you guys. Was really great. The event you put on, and bringing these things together, I think is that's you have some great insight into and a vision. So I love it.
Yeah, right on, man. Well, hopefully we haven't seen the last of each other. Maybe we'll see each other in April.
Yes, sir. That will be great.
All right, Brandon. Thanks for
buddy.
coming on the show. Come back anytime, brother. Text me anytime. We'll let's chat here in the next couple of days and talk about what we were talking about before.
Okay, sounds good, man.
Okay, bro.
See you, buddy.
All right, bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
And that was our chat with Brandon Powell.
What'd you think, buddy?
That was great.
Are you glad? So you're glad we waited till after instead of doing it before?
Yeah, totally. It was good to experience it and then ask him questions about it.
Absolutely.
I've been inspired. I've been doing the breathing a little bit more. It's sort of a good premeditative thing to do. Like,
you do it in your car?
A normal.
On
I
your way
did it
to
the
work?
first time. That's when I was driving out to Saskatchewan when I first tried it, and I was just all like, just jacked and dizzy, and I was just driving like 140.
Jacked and dizzy.
Yeah.
Graham's driving around jacked and dizzy. Watch out. Is that an impaired?
I'm just breathing, officer.
You're
I'm
all
just
Wim
breathing.
Hofed up.
He's like, you're going a little fast. I'm like, I don't think I was.
No, I'm good. I'm good, motherfucker. Right on. Well, big thanks to Brandon for coming on the show. Big thanks to you guys for listening. Big extra thanks to those of you who take the time to support the show over at grimerica.ca/support. You are our only source of revenue. And
the other thing I want to mention too is I think we have some audio that I think Adam's going to try and clean it up a little bit from the conference where Brandon was leading us through with the drumming and the.
Oh yeah, we'll put that in the black.
Fully in and out.
We'll put that in the
and
black budget.
Belly, chest, and head. Fully
Yeah.
in. That was really good.
That's a good reason to support the show. You get the black
put it in
budget,
the black budget,
and
yeah.
we're going to put Brandon's stuff in the black budget there for our
I
supporters.
hope he's okay with that. He should be. Yeah.
He'll be okay. It's just a black budget. There's only like 6 people that listen to that shit. We won't do the other thing we talked about in the black budget. Well, we might. Yeah, we'll see. Anyway, support the show, guys. We couldn't do it without you. We can't do it without you. And we won't be able to keep doing it if we don't find some more. Yeah, grimerica.ca/support really does make a difference, and we can't do it without you guys. So maybe this week's the week to hit that support page, sign up for monthly, even if it's $1 a month. At least you got your foot in the door. You can always bump it up later. And do all the other stuff in the show notes, review the show, share the show, sign up for the newsletter, all that fantastic stuff. Join the chats and have some good vibes for your weekend. All right, guys. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.
Just a drop in the bucket, baby. You're just a single solitary drop in the bucket, baby. You're just a drop in the bucket, baby. You're just a single solitary drop in the bucket, baby. Baby. Headlines they read doom and gloom, and I drop down on my bended knee and howl at the moon. Oh, and I drop down on my bended knee, pinching pennies. Da da. Whoa, whoa. Ta-da. There's $1 million house up for sale back in my hometown. Think I'll buy it up think I'll be a poet today. Sketch out the scenery. Rambling from here and there and back and forth between here and there and back and forth between here and there and to the corner store. The Sunrise Corner Store. The Sunrise Corner Store. The Sunrise Corner Store. Pinching pennies. La da da da. Whoa, whoa. Ta-da. There's $1 million house up for sale back in my hometown. Think I'll buy it up with my good charm. Buy myself a dog to be my best friend. There's $1 million house up for sale back in my hometown. Think I'll buy it up with my good charm. Buy myself a dog to be my best friend. There's $1 million house up for sale back in my hometown. Think I'll buy it up with my good charm. Buy myself a dog to be my best friend. There's $1 million house up for sale back in my hometown. Think I'll buy it up with my good charm. Buy myself a dog to be my best friend. There's $1 million house up for sale back in my hometown. Think I'll buy it up with my good charm. Buy myself a dog to be my best friend. There's $1 million house up for sale back in my hometown. Think I'll buy it up with my good charm. Buy myself a dog to be my best friend. There's $1 million house up for sale back in my hometown. Think I'll buy it up with my good charm. Buy myself a dog to be my best friend. There's $1 million house up for sale. We've been working on the podcast all the live long day. We've been working on the podcast to inform and to entertain. Can't you hear that theme song playing through your headphone cord? Can't you spare a couple dollars to give Grimerica support? Grimerica.ca/support. Grimerica.ca/support. Oh, fee-fi, fiddly-I-O. And tell them Felix sent you there.